In a stunning victory for freedom of speech, Jimmy Kimmel is back on. Except, in the process, we got further confirmation that his takedown was never about freedom of speech or censorship. That is a manipulative narrative you are being fed. Let's see how.
And if you're looking for real news, perhaps you're in for a treat.
New movies come out in the next 5 years. And it's open in all major markets. There's been out 10 weeks already. And in that time, it has only managed to go to
In our previous video, we broke down how it wasn't Donald Trump or the FCC that had taken down Jimmy Kimmel, despite the popular narrative being flaunted all over social media and by the political opponents of the current administration. Instead, it was Disney themselves that took down Kimmel, and of their own volition and for their own reasons. And more than that, the person who made the call was none other than Bob Iger himself. Yes, Sinclair and Nexstar were going to preempt Kimmel on the ABC affiliates in their networks, but that didn't mean Disney had to do anything. Iger literally could have done nothing. That was one option available to him. Yet he chose to take down Jimmy Kimmel for the indefinite future, and after the fact, we know that meant not even a week. That's how long Kimmel was off air. Days only. Now he's back again, and Disney released a statement, which read, "Last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive." To say nothing about being in hoax territory. But their actual words continue. "We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy, and after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday." Piers Morgan, the living embodiment of Jerry Springer, as his show is all about the guests attacking each other for the viewers' delight, even stated what we and our viewers knew from the get-go. Kimmel wasn't cancelled by Trump or the FCC after all, but temporarily suspended by his employer because they thought what he said was ill-timed and insensitive. Indeed, and case in point, nothing else has changed since then. As per Deadline Hollywood, Nexstar and Sinclair are still preempting Kimmel on their networks, like they were doing before Disney cancelled Kimmel in the first place. And now that Disney has changed course, Nexstar and Sinclair are still preempting him like they were doing all along. Nothing else has changed here, in other words. Disney were always the ones doing this, and again, by every available metric, they did so of their own volition. This actually cannot be emphasized enough, because for days on end, the mainstream narrative, which is a complete distortion of reality, has been that Trump's man in the FCC took down Jimmy Kimmel, when in truth, the FCC hadn't taken any action in the matter yet, and if they ever did, that would likely be little more than a fine for spreading a hoax, which is what the notion that Charlie Kirk's killer was MAGA indisputably is, because as it stands, all the current iteration of the FCC has ever threatened to do is to actually enforce the rules which were already in place and which were there under Biden as well.
Again, broadcast TV is different. We're on a cable show right now. You don't have an FCC license. You don't have an obligation to serve the public interest. Podcasts don't either. Stand-up comedians, whether they're on lots of forms of communications, don't, and Kimmel is free to do that. But if you have a broadcast TV license, that means that you have something that very few people have, and you're excluding other people from having access to that valuable public resource, and it comes with an obligation to serve the public interest. And again, over the years, there's been a rule in place at the FCC that local TV stations get to preempt programming that they don't think meets the needs of their communities. But recently, these national programmers, ABC, Disney, Comcast, NBC, they've been exercising outsized control and power over those local TV stations, and there's been no pushback. And this is a very significant moment because local broadcasters are now pushing back on national programmers for the first time that I can think of in modern history. And that's one of the things we want at the FCC. We want to empower local broadcasters that have the public interest obligation to push back on national programmers so that people have more choice.
Still, many have fallen prey to the hoax that democracy itself is on the line, and Jimmy Kimmel is a martyr to that cause, which may inspire crazies out there to do crazy things. which at least one crazy already has, which led to one ABC affiliate finding themselves in the crossfire. So clearly, this is not a healthy narrative. So, what really happened to bring Kimmel back again? What made Disney change course? Well, Deadline Hollywood has the inside word. They write in their exclusive: Tuesday's return of Jimmy Kimmel to late-night TV was the result of days of meetings and negotiations with top Disney executives that only came to a resolution Monday morning. There was always a desire to do the best thing for the company. An insider told Deadline of the direct talks and thoughtful conversations between Disney CEO Bob Iger, Disney Entertainment Chief Dana Walden, and Kimmel and his team. To that, the final sign-off on Kimmel's return to his long-running Jimmy Kimmel Live was made this morning by Iger and Walden after a last-minute flurry of paperwork, texts and calls with Team Jimmy, Deadline is told. And jumping to the end of the article, Deadline's reports of dissent within Disney's upper ranks and the widespread negative reaction among top-tier Hollywood talent to Kimmel's pseudo-suspension, as one source called it, last week stung Iger and CEO contender Walden, Deadline hears. However, individuals close to the action insists that outside pressures or critiques had no significant impact on coming to a timely resolution. It became such a mess. The only solution for all sides was to get this over with sooner than later, a Hollywood power player in the Disney Kimmel loop says. So, in other words, what we learned from that article we just saw, there was never any pressure on Disney from anyone to do anything in the first place. But the blowback from the celebrities was so bad that Iger caved on his earlier decision. That's what happened here, and now Jimmy Kimmel can go back to spreading disinformation and hoaxes, and claim that he defeated the evil Trump administration and the FCC that tried and failed to take him down, when in reality it was actually Bob Iger that did that. My worry, however, is that the already divisive Jimmy Kimmel, who may very well have contributed to some being more radicalized by his never-ending Chicken Little the sky is falling down shtick, is going to come back even more extreme and spread hoaxes which are so far out there that the FCC will have no choice but to react, as they do have some rules to uphold where truth in journalism is concerned, especially in public airways, thus paving the way for radical voices to yet again try to martyrize Jimmy Kimmel. That is what I would call the real national late nightmare, though the hosts themselves disagree with that. Deadline Hollywood did a write-up on this as well, where all the other propagandists, or rather late-night hosts, welcomed back their fellow Democrat influencer. In the piece, late-night hosts react to Jimmy Kimmel's return. Our long national late nightmare is over. True to form, of course, no one acknowledged that Bob Iger and Iger alone is the one who took down Kimmel, and then brought him back because Tatiana Maslany and friends were pissed. Instead, the hoax that it was a political hit job was being furthered, with Seth Meyers saying, Donald Trump is publicly calling on his attorney general to prosecute his political enemies and said TV networks that criticize him should lose their broadcast license. But that's not us, right? We're good? Makes me wonder, where are the fact-checkers now? To be clear, I don't mind anyone criticizing Trump. There's a lot of grounds for that, to be sure, and I'm not even American in the first place. But I am a global citizen of the world, to paraphrase Bob Iger. And I do mind when public opinion leaders like these late-night talk show hosts are disseminating blatant hoaxes among the populace of the nation that protects the free world. That might actually have some consequences beyond the ratings. Anyway, let me know how excited you are for Kimmel's return and what you think that may herald in the comments.